right. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm gonna do this fun little gallery view so I get to see everybody who's able's faces. Hi there. This is Mary from the Fresh Access Books team. I'm actually in Georgia right now, so I'm all bundled up like a little Florida girl. But we just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning. Normally, as you know, we would be having our in-person annual training. And we certainly do miss seeing all of your faces in person, but it's really great to see you the next best way in this virtual space. Um, I'm going to hand it over to Rachel before we get started really quickly, just to go over a little bit of Zoom housekeeping and just a little bit of like guidelines for the day to make sure everybody knows how to use the technology that we've got in front of us. And then we'll get started. So Rachel, I'll hand it over to you for just a moment.
Thanks. Welcome, everyone. My name's Rachel Reichenbach. Some of you know me from when I was on the FAB team a couple of years ago. Now I live in Tallahassee and I work as a facilitator. So I've been helping the FAB team prepare for today. And I'm going to be holding our technology space as opposed to our in-person space while we're all together. So I'll just do a quick, or maybe not so quick, depending on our needs. I'll do a little bit of a Zoom tutorial just so we're all on the same page and hopefully we can get as much out of our technology as possible. So currently you should all be muted. That way we don't have a lot of background noise that interferes with our conversation or with the content. If you would like to speak, there will definitely be time for us to speak with each other a little bit later on today as well as tomorrow. So if you'd like to speak, there's a raise hand function in Zoom that will indicate to me that you'd like to speak, and then I will unmute you. So in order to raise your hand, you should be able, when you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a, we're having already a little bit of Zoom difficulty. Jerry, it looks like you're sharing your screen. And I'm not sure. Oh, great. I'm going to stop Jerry's screen sharing. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Just to be expected. So if you want to speak into the space, if you look at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a button that says participants. And if you click on where it says participants, you should be able to see an option that says raise hand. And when you raise your hand, I'll get a little ping on my end, and then I can go in and manually unmute you. We just experienced a little bit of screen sharing. So us as the FAB team will share our screens to share some content. We would ask that other folks don't share their screens. And if you do accidentally start sharing your screens, I will kindly and swiftly end the screen sharing process. Let's see what else. Yeah, we would really encourage folks to communicate in the chat. For those of you who are on your computer, you can see the chat button at the very bottom of the screen. That way, during times when we're just sharing content, sorry, having some background noise here. If we're sharing content, you all can continue to ask questions or post reflections in the chat as you'd like. If you're on your phone, if you're using the Zoom app, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see 3 little dots that should say more. And when you click on that, you should see an option to hit the chat. Yeah, and I guess the last thing I would say about Zoom, and FAB team, feel free to jump in if I've missed anything, is just asking for everyone's patience with the technology. Obviously, we all wish we were in person, and while Zoom offers us a lot of opportunity to be together virtually when we can't be together physically, it also creates some barriers and some challenges. And unfortunately, when we're all sharing a similar technology platform, we're not all having the same technology experience. Some of us are familiar with Zoom, some of us are not, some of us are on computers, some of us are calling in. So we're going to do our very best to make sure that everybody has a great experience. And if you are having technical difficulty, we really empathize with you and we really appreciate your patience. And if you wanted to use the chat to contact me or anybody else on the FAB team, you're welcome to do that. And we will do our best to solve any technology challenges that we might be having. FAB team, anything else, or anybody else who's familiar with Zoom want to put something in the chat that feels like a helpful tip before we get going? Okay, great. Well, then I will hand it back over to Mary.
Great. Let me go ahead and try to share my screen real quick. Can you make me co-host, Rachel? It looks like I don't have that option quite yet. All right, there we go. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And we'll go ahead and get started. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah, great. So this is today's agenda. As Rachel mentioned, please be patient with us. We're learning Zoom too. But for this morning, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a little bit of just the FAB program mechanics, give a little refresher and just tips and upside ideas for how to really bring the awesome sauce to your program, the extra little bits. We'll also be going through a breakout room on the different ways to manage your FM tracks to make sure you're up to date on the easiest way to do things and how to make sure you get your reimbursements in a timely fashion. We'll have a little bit of a break after that, and then we'll go into a fun Zoom learning lunch together. We will talk about all of our quarantine cuisines, as well as getting through what is some of the just the logistics nitty gritty of the process that we've been in through COVID, with either changing our market outlets or kind of figuring out how to regroup and be the best we can be when we get back to normal-ish. And then tomorrow morning, we'll be coming at you again with a little bit more fun stuff, talking about the ways we see these silver linings and build for the future, as well as a really amazing time talking with Heather Martin from the Department of Children and Families with our outreach and promotion plans. We want to let you know we've heard you, and we also have a really great addition to the team who you'll get to meet tomorrow that's going to really bring our outreach game up a notch. So we're excited to have you here. If you don't already know us all, I'm Mary Hathaway. I'm one of your program managers, and I am the Central Florida liaison too. You've got the illustrious and amazing Katie Delaney. Wave, Katie. Yay. We've got Heather Henderson, of course, our South Florida FAB coordinator extraordinaire. We also have Megan Fivash joining us. She's not on the call today, but she'll be with us tomorrow. She's our brand spanking new FAB communications coordinator, and we're so excited to have her. She's going to really help us help you guys. And then, of course, as we know, Rachel Reichenbach, who we have stolen back in time, is now a facilitator extraordinaire with Resist Reimagine. So our little pictures are down there, or if you want, you can imagine we are one of these fun dancing vegetables. I want to be the one playing the accordion. I think it's a potato. So in this talk today, like I mentioned, we'll do the fabulous mechanics. We'll touch briefly on nutrition education and how that probably is going to look different from here on out. I'll mention a little bit of a reminder on the annual report survey, the FAB membership and what that looks like and how we're going to do it again this year. And then we'll break into groups based on how you do your FM track. So if you're a token market, if you do a 50% off, or if you have this brand new wild world of kind of tokenless matches is what we're calling them. And I encourage you all, if you have any questions that you want to make sure get answered at any time, please do put them in the chat box. We're here. We want to make sure that this space and time is helpful for you and really serves the purpose of what you're trying to do with your community within the FAB program. So of course, just a fun reminder of what we are. Fresh Access Bucks is now a part of Feeding Florida. In 2018, we got our second version of the Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentive Act, which is the USDA funding we received We do have a 3-year mandate with this $3 million grant. With COVID, I'm pretty sure we're going to extend that an extra year. So we are Florida's statewide nutrition incentive program. We are one of many different state programs, but have been in operation as a nutrition incentive program on the statewide level since 2013. Feeding Florida is now our umbrella organization. They are Florida's statewide network of food banks. We have 12 different food banks in the state of Florida, so are really branching out regionally. I will say one initial silver lining of some of the pandemic problems have been that the food banks have seen and heard from us, as well as some of the state agencies really seeing the role that the markets that you all can play in increasing food access. So the messenger matters, and in this case, it's been really great to be a part of Feeding Florida for that. I always like to put a little reminder of why we do the work that we do. As you know, SNAP is the most effective and efficient way to lift people out of food insecurity. It reaches over 1.8 million households. That's over 3 million individuals in the state of Florida on an average, in blue skies, I'll say. It's about 1/5 of your rural populations and 1 in 7 in cities. Right now in COVID, we're seeing unprecedented levels of unemployment. So people that will probably need food assistance or have already asked for food assistance from the state. We're looking at over 3 million people that are going to be out of work, underemployed, or on furlough, starting in mid-March and leaning all the way into probably July and August. Some of our meal deficit metrics have shown that there's about 2.7 million Floridians missing meals at least once per week, with a total of 20 million meals missing each week in Florida. So the issues that are being brought up are things that we can try to address in our own unique ways by providing access for food, as well as specifically access for people who may not have an adequate income to get healthy, nutritious food. I also really love this, thinking about food as a way of really impacting the future outcomes of households. If you don't have proper nutrition, your incidence of chronic illness are higher. If you don't have proper nutrition, your outcomes for education for children can be lower. So this is great work that you're all doing for your communities. And of course, this is why we always say it's better to pay the farmer than the doctor. We know that if you increase the access to healthy local food, you're going to create a healthy environment. You're going to increase the conversation, which is normally good, between farmer and consumer, which means there might be some chances for greater food education. There's obviously a direct impact on that local farmer income, as well as the local economy in general, because that money just circulates within your community. I know I'm speaking to the choir here. I just always have loved this slide, so I have to do it. In blue skies, we are at 36 farmers markets, 9 are mobile markets, 3 different community supported agriculture programs, and 6 farm stands. Currently, there's about 32 of you guys that we are aware of that are in operation. So you can see that's a big change. We do know, of course, that it's May, and so people are starting to either go into their slow season or even closing for the summer. We, as a program, want to work statewide. So if you ever have any other farmers markets, farmer friends that you know of that would be interested in a good fit for the program, we, of course, want to expand to reach every county, every town possible. And how does it work? So the basics: use SNAP, we match. A customer can spend $1, but really get $2 of that Florida grown fruits and vegetables. So we are that dollar for dollar match all the way through August 31st. It's going to be an unlimited match, which means if a SNAP customer wants to spend $60 in their SNAP, they can get $60 in FAB. If they want to spend $100 in SNAP, they can get $100 in FAB matched to them. There is no cap on that for the meanwhile. We're collecting data on that just to see how it's being utilized and if it's something that the program can sustain or should sustain in a long term. As some of you might remember, after Hurricane Irma, we increased it to $40 from the original $20. And that was a big deal. I think it made a lot of impact. But now, as we're seeing after Florida increased the amount that SNAP recipients received, so everyone was kind of bumped to their highest level within whatever quadrant they were, like a single household or an elderly household, they were bumped to that highest maximum reception of benefits. We know that this is something that people need and use, and we want to encourage them to use it with you guys and your farmers. Anecdotally, we do know that there have been a lot of places where this has been really well used. It's also a really great mechanism to make a purchase and then either have tokens or a balance later that they can spend, so the amount of times that a SNAP shopper has to interact with you or your equipment is limited. So the basics are that someone would come to your outlet with an EBT card. They would swipe with your centralized system, and they would decide, okay, I think I can spend $20 on my SNAP card. They would get their $20 in SNAP tokens. They would get their $20 in Fresh Access Bucks tokens, and then they would go and shop with those vendors that are able to accept and are eligible for those items. At the end of the day, the vendors would come back to you and say, these are the tokens that got spent to you, and you as a market manager would reimburse them. If you are a farm stand or a CSA, all of that is kind of happening at once just with you, right? So they would already have their purchase or their amount with you. They would swipe their EBT card with you for the half of the amount of what is owed. So they get a 50% discount. We'll go into more of the nitty gritty about how that actually looks in FM tracks and in practice when we do our breakout rooms. But basically, this is just to say the trigger is always just using that SNAP card. Once the SNAP card is used, they get that Fresh Access Bucks for an equal amount. So big reminder, SNAP, SNAP, SNAP. Unfortunately, SNAP did not change. There's still no hot food allowed, nothing like that. It is fruits and vegetables, your bread, eggs, dairy that's for human consumption, seeds and plants which produce food to eat. And the one thing I always say about this is that it's the intention, right? The intention is that you're going to go home and prepare it, not that you're going to consume it right then and there. And so that has all things to do with the packaging, right? Like one loose cookie, not okay. Multiple cookies in a box, SNAP eligible, right? And I know all of you have gone through that. I don't know if anybody's looking through the chat, but if anyone has had a very random thing or has a question about what may or may not be SNAP eligible or how to make it SNAP eligible, we're always here for you to field those questions and give you guidance. Please make sure that food labeled for pet consumption, like any of your raw milk or raw dairy products, are not SNAP eligible. Pet food in general is not SNAP eligible. So it's a human food made to be eaten off-site. I know some clever market managers have told us in the past that sometimes they'll cruise Publix and see what they're getting away with and chat them up, which I think if Publix is getting away with it, then we should definitely get away with it too. Yeah. Any questions or any really random, fun, SNAP eligible things you guys have seen, or creative ways you've made things so that your SNAP vendors can sell something?
If anyone wants to jump in, feel free to drop your response either in the chat or raise your hand. So again, if you click on participants, you'll see the option to raise your hand, and we'll go ahead and unmute you. We'd love to hear from some folks answering Mary's question.
Do you know that bow and arrows and fishing equipment is SNAP eligible in Alaska? Fun fact.
Mary, you do have a couple questions in the chat here.
Okay.
Michaela from Pensacola, hey Michaela, is asking, so one sealed regular serving size of kombucha would not be eligible, but a 6-pack would be eligible for SNAP?
So actually a sealed, is it like a 12 ounce of kombucha? So if it's larger, like say for instance, even a mini growler, which would be like 32 ounces, that would be SNAP eligible. But if it's like a single serving, generally 16 ounces or less would be considered not SNAP eligible because it's sort of right there for consumption.
Cool. Great. And Michaela, feel free to drop in the chat if that does or does not answer your question. And then from Gail in St. Pete. Hey, Gail. She's saying the comment about not taking tokens from other markets is interesting. I have taken tokens. So maybe, Mary, will you elaborate a little?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry I didn't touch on that, Gail. You're totally right. So as long as you have an agreement on how to rectify that, totally fine. And the reason we put that there as a reminder is just if you get SNAP tokens, and FAB, it doesn't matter. If the green tokens are statewide, doesn't matter as long as it's a FAB eligible market, right? But the SNAP token, that money is considered, once that card is swiped, goes straight to your bank account, right? So the USDA, FNS doesn't have any concept of like, oh, they're using a token or, oh, they're buying it right then and there. So unfortunately, if, for instance, you accepted tokens from another market, so you got them from Temple Terrace or something like that, that money would already be in their account, but you're paying your vendors. So you just need to figure out a way to rectify it. But you can certainly do that. We lovingly call it cross-pollination, and we think it's great. We just want to make sure you guys know that who's got the money and that people get paid in the correct way, because we don't want anybody left hanging. But great question. Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Beautiful. Just to quickly loop us back to the kombucha conversation, Heather, and I'm just repeating stuff so folks who aren't looking in the chat can participate as well. Heather's saying kombucha is an interesting one. In my opinion, if it's a closed container, a sealed bottle or growler, it's SNAP eligible, but an open cup is not. And Katie of the FAB team is chiming in and agreeing. And Emily raises an interesting point, saying that Publix will accept SNAP for cold deli subs, but not for hot ones.
Yep.
FAB team, any thoughts or reflections on that data point?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, you all. So that is questionable. I think you could probably lean towards a sealed one is okay, can take home. Generally, smaller package sizes are not eligible if they're cold for SNAP purchasing. It just depends. And then to the point of the cold sub, yeah, technically that's true. It's packaged. You could eat it later. It's not right then and there. So yeah, they're getting around it. It's true.
Great. And then it looks like one last thing from Gail down in Brevard County. The question is mixed, blended, dried greens that are added to water, juice, etc.
That would be SNAP eligible in like a package, right? So even if it's single, because like you do have to do something to prepare it. So is it like in a small pouch, almost like one of those like emergency things? That would all be, as long as it's not labeled like as a supplement. If it's labeled more like, you know, the way the little mix for like making like tea or yeah, like an emergency or something like that, that would be considered SNAP eligible. You can't make any like herbal claims. Otherwise it goes into the world of being like a supplement, which is not a SNAP eligible item.
And then Zaida chimes in, could I purchase a canal lily plant with SNAP and or FAB tokens?
What part of the canal lily are you going to eat? Is there a part that's edible? Can I find that culturally? Because if so, then yes, because we've definitely had like almost all parts of the sunflower be SNAP eligible, FAB eligible.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. And then one more from Michaela. Michaela, for folks who don't know, runs a farm stand. So they sell a diverse variety of products. And so she's saying, because I work with local craft drink makers, she wants to know, since people are able to buy sealed local 4-pack sodas on SNAP at Publix, should they allow it at the farm or at the farm stand?
Yeah, or if they do like growlers that are like kind of sealed, like, you know, if you've ever gone to a brewery and there's the bigger jug and they just put like the electrical tape around the top, technically, as long as it's not alcohol, of course, that would be considered SNAP eligible as well, because you're going to take that home as a packaged good. Or if they're in 4-packs, something like that, absolutely, that'd be fine. Encourage it.
I also want to just mention, we had a question, actually got it privately, about citrus. And I do want to just clarify that citrus absolutely is SNAP eligible. It would fall under the fruits and vegetables category. It would also be eligible for a fresh access box.
Yay,
a great
all
question.
the citrus. Yes, please, let's bring our citrus industry back, especially the guys direct to consumer. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Okay.
I'm just going to do one more. Oh, sorry, Mary. Were you ready to move on?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, I know that technology is not equal across all experiences. So if you're having trouble with the actual raise hand function in Zoom, but you have something you want to say, feel free to like physically raise your hand and I'll do a quick scan of people's screens and make sure we're not leaving anybody behind who wants to chime in or who has a question. Okay, great. Looks like we're all set. Looks like we're all set in the chat. So thanks, Mary. Take it away.
Yay, good. And then the fresh access bucks, of course, the Florida grown fruits and vegetables, plants and seeds which produce food to eat. And just to Zaida's point about the canna lily, if there is something edible about it and you could really culturally look that up, that like, okay, this is really a thing and someone's not just like in the moon. For instance, like aloe vera has become very popular, right? So since that is an edible product, there's a lot behind it. That would be FAB eligible. Any of the seeds that people grow that can produce food, of course, we always encourage that. And then the Florida grown fruits and vegetables, if you are on our northern border, there's that 50-mile buffer into the state of Georgia or Alabama. Yeah, and then a green FAB tokens can be used at any FAB market. So those go anywhere and everywhere. Obviously, it's because we reimburse you based on them being redeemed, right? So people have actually spent them. If you don't use tokens, it's not an issue. Like, you know, something's being spent as it's redeemed, so it's not an issue. But if you do have them, they're everywhere. Are there any questions on anything about the plants and seeds or Florida grown fruits and vegetables or anything about FAB that we could answer right now for the group?
I'm seeing a question from Emily, and maybe Katie, you also have some insight into this. Is the Jacksonville area in that 50-mile to Georgia buffer? But okay, take it away. I think I have the answer, but I'm going to lean on the experts here.
So yes, absolutely. Jacksonville is very close to the Georgia border, but even if you weren't in Jacksonville, let's say that you had a grower that was growing 50 miles outside the border of Florida, so in Georgia, that product would still be eligible even if they were traveling to like the Orlando market. So really when we're looking at what's fresh access bucks eligible, it's anything within the state of Florida and then any products that are grown within 50 miles of our border. So that includes anything that in Georgia or Alabama within 50 miles of the Florida border. I hope that answers your question, Emily.
Great.
I didn't even know that there was a Jacksonville, Georgia, Heather. Heather has said, do you mean Jacksonville, Georgia? And if it's within 50 miles of the border of Florida, then sure, absolutely. But I'm not sure if it is that far. I'll check that out.
Great. Well, again, on any of these kind of technical things, we're always here for you to answer these questions on what can and can't be used. These are easy, fun ones for us. We love hearing what people are asking, what your vendors are growing or selling, and just making sure that there's opportunities for them to utilize the funding from both SNAP and Fresh Access Bucks.
Beautiful. We do have a question here from Jerry. He's saying, I don't understand why orange juice would not be accepted if it's in a closed container.
Orange juice is SNAP eligible, Jerry, but because it's not a fresh produce, right? It's been processed, it's been juiced. It's not FAB eligible, but it's SNAP eligible. And if they buy the oranges themselves, it's FAB eligible. So I don't know, maybe if they have their own little fun, like press juicer, the person can buy the oranges and then he can put them in the juice for them after they've been purchased. You want to get creative. But yeah, no processing on the fresh fruits and vegetables, right?
And I see that Christine has her hand raised. So Christine, I'm going to go ahead and take you off mute.
Thanks, because I couldn't type it. I was just wondering about like herbs and herbal supplements and stuff.
Yep. So herbs, if they're dried or if they're fresh access bucks eligible, right? If they're dried, then that's considered like a process. So they would be SNAP eligible at that point.
Okay.
Just be
And if
careful about the
anything's been done
labeling.
to them, like an infusion or,
Go ahead, I'm sorry. An infusion.
and then if anything's been done to them, like an infusion or a tincture, they would not be eligible, right?
Tinctures, that's a good question. It depends on the labeling. You just have to, labeling things as supplements is not kind of where the world of SNAP lives. So if it's something that's like, oh, it's for a healthy drink, and it says something like that. But if it's sort of like, I'm trying to remember the language they have around it that would be most helpful. What is it called and how is it labeled? Maybe that would help me. What did they call it?
Okay, so like a rosemary tincture, that's the label, 1 ounce. Or,
and it's just kind of like a flavoring for your beverages kind of thing, or for mixed drinks or anything like that.
right, you could use it for that. You could use it for a lot of different things, but you could definitely use it as a flavoring as well.
Mm-hmm. If it's got that intention, it doesn't just like specifically say something like, oh, sublingual or supplemental. You could probably use it as like just a flavoring for a drink, and so then it could be SNAP eligible.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds lovely too.
All right, Christine,
I make it. Let me know. I'll ship you some.
Cool.
Christine, I'm going to go ahead and put you back on mute. Thanks for chiming in. Mary, I do want to flag we're running just a little bit over time. So I think maybe we'll just hold questions until we can get into the breakout rooms, so we can just keep moving through the content.
Great. All this stuff is real quick. I just wanted to point out that we know you guys do a ton of hard work, and it's not just we're going to accept SNAP and then all of a sudden the doors are banging and people are just like rushing to use SNAP. Like there's so much more to it. I know that there are ways to make things better, and we want to make sure that that path to really having that awesome sauce on your FAB program is there and easily accessible. I love some of these photos because they do highlight some of the great things you can do, like reminding people that they can double their bucks, making sure that the produce is labeled with both price and where it's from so people understand, and especially folks who maybe are uncomfortable asking for prices, or if English isn't their first language. This is a great way to make sure it feels very accessible and the program feels understandable. I also want to make a nod that that picture of people handing the coins back and forth will probably never happen again, at least not without a hefty amount of hand sanitizer. Nutrition ed. So we do know that things are different. We are still asking for that 6 distinct SNAP nutrition education events. These can be in the shape of sending a recipe in your newsletter, having recipe cards available, maybe just doing like a virtual thing on your social media of like someone cooking some produce in their own kitchen. We know that cooking has kind of been a new thing. What is it? It's quarantine baking and all that stuff that people have been really into. So use that as we can. We track these through your post-market reports, which we'll go over today in our breakout rooms, as well as through the annual report survey. We know that there is so much evidence that if people don't know how to cook things or make them taste the way they are used to culturally, that they just will not give them a try. So it's so important to make sure people understand. It's not a given that everybody knows what's in season or how to cook it. So that's another great piece of the educational puzzle, is letting people know what's in season and really promoting your growers. So that is a great way to do it. This make your own collard wrap, again, obviously probably something we're not going to see for a long time, is everybody reaching their hands in that candy jar. But please use this if you can as a way to highlight your local growers. It's a great way to promote, and it's a great way to educate about seasonal food. And of course, I'm not going to go to it right now, but when we send out this presentation afterwards, this is linked to our nutrition education guide. Really encourage you guys to look through it if you haven't already. We really love it. It's really cute. And there's just ideas for what to do for the different types of markets that are out there. So please do check it out at your leisure on our website. When you are logging your nutrition education events, this is your post-market report. And this last little question, did you have any of the following activities today? Check all that apply. and you can check off the different types of things that you've got there. So that's one of the ways we just go through and check in your post-market reports. Tomorrow, Katie will be talking more about community awareness and outreach programs. We do have a lot of materials that are available on our website. We also have different ideas. We know that it's so important, and that, you know, while word of mouth is the best, the next best thing is just to be out there, graphics, imagery, and making sure people have a way to access you and just see you. And all of this stuff can be found in the FAB Toolkit. It's all online on our website, www.freshaccessbucks.com. And you can see there's a little tab for market and community resources that has a promotional materials link, different links to recipe cards, FM Tracks tutorials, and just different guides to help you along the way. Finally, I do want to mention that our annual report, we're almost through our second fiscal year of this particular grant, which is crazy. It'll be done on May 31st, and that'll be it. We'll wrap it all up, and then we'll be contacting you all to get information on your market closures or the impacts of COVID, the nutrition education events, your in-kind match, and any information about SNAP tech support that you received. We're going to be doing this a little bit different this year. I think we're going to be having a mixture of a little bit of like an easy survey for the easy questions, and then we'll just do a quick call with everyone to kind of walk through everything, and just really make sure we're giving the support you need and just hearing from you. And we'll give more in-depth detail on the annual report in our June regional call. So in about a month. We'll be walking you all through it and making sure everybody understands. But we're going to make that as painless as possible, we promise. The FAB annual membership will also be calculated at about that same point. We look at our FINI year, which was, this one was June 1st through May 31st, coming up here. So we're not quite there yet. The scale remained the same for the tiers and the brackets. So nothing has changed at all since last year. We'll again go over this in our June call. I just wanted to give a refresher that this would be the same thing. Once we calculate what the FAB incentives redeemed were, that's all just FAB incentives redeemed. It doesn't have anything to do with SNAP at all. We'll calculate this and give this to you by the end of July, and the membership fee won't be due until September, okay? So we're a long way off here. Of course, the benefits include all the great parts of being a FAB partner, all your program resources, the technical assistance, the state and national partnerships with all of our different allies within the state and the United States in general. And then any of this work with the professional development, as well as all the materials with your, including the FAB incentive funds and the market promotional materials. So again, if you have questions on this, we can definitely talk about this later, or we can go through it on our June FAB monthly call. And just a quick at a glance, I know we're in these different times, but I did just want to put a little bit of like a highlight on what's been going on just for March and April. So this year we saw, or just for March and April of this year, it was about 115,000 in SNAP and FAB, over 2,000 transactions with only 32 markets operating fully or at a different kind of capacity in those 2 months. Versus last year, those same months, we obviously saw a little bit more, right? 160,000 in SNAP and FAB redeemed, more transactions, right? 3,300 transactions, but there was 54 markets operating. So we do see, while there is less traffic going on, we do see more purchasing happening at those outlets. So we can take that a little bit as a silver lining, I think, that people are still really utilizing the program and reaching out and trying to find these places for good food access. So great job. And again, I think even with some of the changes, we're going to still continue to see this increase in SNAP and FAB use at all the different outlets throughout. So without any further ado, we're going to get towards FM Tracks. But right now, I'm going to ask if you, Rachel, could push our little poll, because I'm going to do an FM Tracks pop quiz before we get into it. So go ahead and
folks
take
who
your
are
time.
able to,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, if you're able to see the poll, please go ahead and log your responses. If you're on a phone or if you're having some sort of technical difficulty and you can't see the poll, we apologize and we wish that you were able to see the poll. All right, starting to see a few responses come in. We'll give it about 30 more seconds.
All right.
All
Great.
right, I'm gonna end the poll. Yeah, Carol, I did see it. All right, ending the poll, and now I'm gonna share the results so people can see it.
Great. So let's
Mary, how did people do on the quiz?
you guys are doing really great. I think all these mostly. So the what day and time does FAB team pull your FM Tracks data for reimbursement? Every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Yes, great job. Today we're going to give you a little slack because you're on here with us, so we might not pull it till 3. Shh, don't tell the people that aren't on the call. But yes, we do. So make sure your information is all in by Tuesday at 1 p.m. We pull that information from FM Tracks just after that time and look it all through and make sure it's there and you get your reimbursement from the previous week. So great job. Every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Where do we get the total amount to reimburse your market each week? Yay, vendor reimbursement. It's exactly right. So make sure those vendor reimbursements are in, especially those folks that have a discount market where it kind of seems like that's a redundant step. If we don't see it in the vendor reimbursement, we don't see it as like it's been paid and you've received that amount of money. So make sure those are done. And then fill in the blank. My market uses a blank system. Good. Okay, so we've got a couple people that are like, let me figure this out. And that's perfect. We're in that space for this. So it does look like a good majority of folks on the call are using a token system. So good deal. At this time, we are going to go ahead and move into our FM Tracks tutorial. And I just want to touch, and this is what we'll talk about through the FM Tracks side of this call when we go into our breakout rooms, is we'll go over the Snap and FAB distributed, which is in your transaction log, the FM Tracks ID of the customer, if there's any additional incentives like a $5 flyer or a FAB frequent shopper card. Then we'll move over to the vendor reimbursements with Snap and FAB redeemed. We'll look at the number of SNAP eligible producers in your post-market report, the number of FAB eligible producers in your post-market report, and then those nutrition ed events, which also exist in your post-market report. In your profile, we'll also make sure everybody understands what day their market is on, as well as what that favorites list means, and making sure everybody feels comfortable with that. And just as a reminder, one-on-one support is always available. Please feel free to reach out to me. I would talk through anything with you guys over the phone or on the computer. And if you have new staff or anybody else coming through to train up on your market side, we're here for you. So I think without further ado, we are going to go ahead and go into this brave world of breakout rooms to talk more specific on your different ways of using FM Tracks based on your market type. If you feel like you're in the wrong room, like if we start talking about a token system and you're like, I'm not doing, that doesn't sound right. There's a way for you to leave the room and then Rachel can resort you into the correct space. So if that conversation is not the correct one, there will be a button for you to say to rejoin the main room. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Rachel and go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks, Mary. Can folks hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Great. So we're going to move into breakout rooms. And what I would encourage you to do is I've set it up so that you can unmute yourselves. So you should be able to speak. We hope that you'll speak with one another. When you get into your breakout room, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a little cube that sort of looks like a Rubik's Cube. That puts it on gallery view. So you get to see everybody who's in your room, not just the FAB team member who's presenting or sharing their screen. Like Mary said, if you feel like this isn't the right room or I'm interested in exploring something else, you should see a button at the bottom of your screen to leave the room, and you'll come back into the main room where I will be, and I will help get you sorted to the place where you want to be. Like Mary said, this is a brave new world. I think everybody's going to the right spot. I sure hope so. And if you're not, feel free to chat with the FAB team member who's in your room, or come back to the main room and we'll work it out. All right, we're gonna have about 20 minutes. We are running about 10 minutes over time, as is wont to happen in these types of meetings. And with Zoom, everything takes just a little bit longer. So if you had a meeting or if you have something really important and you need to leave at 12:30, we definitely respect that. If you have a little bit of flexibility, we would love if you would stay just through the completion of the tutorial, and then we'll still have a solid 20-minute break before we start the next segment of the training. All right, so ready, set, here we go. Oh, one last thing. You'll get a 60-second sort of warning that the breakout room is about to close. You don't have to do anything. At the end of that 60 seconds, it will push you back into the main room. So you'll be back here one way or another in about 20 minutes. See you soon.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Hi, 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 hi. I'm going to share my screen really quickly with you guys. Let me see. Pum, pum, pum. Great. Hello, how's everyone doing? Hi. So this room is for the discount program. So if you are operating a mobile market, a farm stand, or a CSA, this is the room for you, I think, mostly. So if we start going through it and it doesn't seem right, just let me know, and I can help you get to another room, or if you know how to join, go back to the main room. Rachel can put you in the right place. We do only have 20 minutes, so I'll try to be brief but thorough, if that's possible. All right, great. So I'm going to use this this Old Paramore Farmers Market as my example market for today. Does everybody see my screen? Can you just wave at me if you can see the screen with FM tracks on it? All right, cool. Great, thank you.
Halifax would be so much more interesting for me, though.
I'm so sorry. I think Katie's using that one. I should have thought about that if I had you, Michaela. Goodness. So market day, this comes up for a reason. So if this annoys you, the reason it's coming up is because FM Tracks is, as you might all know, not the easiest program all the time. It is a little finicky. They want to make sure that you're putting in information for an actual market day. So this is guiding you and kind of your reminder that, like, oh, okay, so today is not a Saturday, right? Which is the day that this Paramore Farmers Market is open. So since I'm coming in on not a Saturday, they want to make sure I'm remembering to record it on an actual Saturday, right? I'm going to X out of here, but I will show you in the profile where you can always check and see what day your profile is set up, because sometimes it might not be the day you're actually in operation if you're in multiple days. And making sure you know that when you come into FM Tracks, you're changing a calendar day to reflect a day that's actually in action. If you don't do that, then we don't always see the information. It can get very glitchy. So first, you'll get that reminder that comes up. The second thing is to look right here where the date is, and you'll see it says today, May 12th, which, yes, that is today. But let's look at our little calendar, and it says, I want to report I'm a little behind, so I'm going to go to Saturday the 2nd, right? And so now I'm actually on a Saturday. I'm really pleased with myself because the FAB team will be able to see it. Great. So FM Tracks works on a series of tabs. You have the enter daily sales and data, manage profile, and run reports. Then nested under that, another series of tabs, transactions, vendor reimbursements, post-market. These are the 3 tabs that you would need to fill out each day, right? Or each market day, I should say. So probably once a week for most of you. Underneath there, of course, again, is nested even more tabs. Underneath transaction, you have new individual transactions, which we do. This is ours. New aggregate transactions, which right now you should not be doing unless like emergency time. There's no reason to use that part. And transaction log can just look back and be a view of all the transactions that you've recorded. So I'm going to just quickly do a couple transactions so we can play with them and make sure everybody knows what they need to be putting in and how. So of course, I'm going to put in a payment. I have a Snap shopper that's coming and they're spending $20 with me total. Luckily, all of it is Florida grown fruits and vegetables. So I can go ahead and select $10 off because in the discount program, this takes off a portion of it, right? It's a discount on the total cost. So it goes ahead and calculates, it looks right. $20 is the total payout. $10 is charged to their Snap card, so you'd swipe 10 on their Snap. $10 is charged to us on Fresh Access Bucks. It's not complete yet because you need to look at their FM Tracks ID, which is the first and last initial on that EBT card, and then the last 4 on the EBT card. Zip codes are incredibly helpful. We've been trying to work much harder on giving you guys charts and more data on where your customers are coming from. It's a quick question. Generally, people are okay with it. If you miss this every now and again, we're not going to be too upset, but it is really helpful just to see like where people are coming into your market. And if we're ever able to do a more targeted campaign with social media, which we're trying to, we will be able to kind of use that data to kind of target those areas. Or if there's a population in a certain zip code that you think would be helpful to target, we would then know, oh, they don't even know about the market yet. Let's use that zip code. So anyways, so you go ahead and put in your zip code. You've got your totals here. These questions are not mandatory. If you want to collect them, that's awesome. Full disclosure, the FAB team is not really using them for anything. So if you don't, that's fine. And then submit transaction. Pacha. And that transaction goes in. It's fun. The first 2 transactions you'll kind of see down here. I was playing around in this before, so that's why there's something in here. But yeah, it'll pop in what's going on. I'm going to do just 2 more transactions with different scenarios. This may be applicable to some of you, but not all. So the next one, again, we've got a Snap shopper, and they've got $30 worth of items, but not all of it is FAB eligible, right? So it's a lot of bread and meat, and only $5 of that 30 is FAB eligible. So I'm still going to select $30 here because that's the total. I am going to then select this button for Fresh Access Bucks, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the amount of FAB it has. So you can see that doesn't change what's going on. It's still keeping that total currency of 30. There's 25 in Snap, 5 in Fresh Access Bucks. Okay. So if there's ever a smaller amount in FAB than Snap, you just make sure you unselect auto calculate and you can pop that in there. I would go ahead and put in my FM Tracks ID and the zip code and go ahead and submit because everything looks good. The other one that gives a lot of trouble is when you have a Snap shopper that also happens to have a coupon. So what is different about the coupons is the coupons are in addition to the total, not a part of the total. So if I get a customer that has a coupon of any sort, say they're bringing in a $5 flyer, right? Because we put 1 million of those in space. I always select the $5 flyer first, because if I do that, you can see that it already pops up into the currency, right? And different than the FAB dollars, it doesn't subtract. It's not a discount, it's adding. So my customer has $25 worth of product. If I type in $25 here, what happens is it bumps that currency up to 30. And that's always kind of like my easy reminder. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. So I would need to do $20 here. Now, so long as $12.50 or more of this is, or I'm sorry, $15 or more of this, because 5 of it is for FAB, you would have the easy ability of just keeping that auto calculate on and including fresh access bucks. So I've got my 5 additional dollars. I've got $20 that is total beyond that, right? So a 25 currency. Then 10 of it only is on Snap, 10 of it is fresh access bucks, and 5 is for that additional $5 flyer. So those are a little confusing. The other issue is if, for instance, in the same scenario, there wasn't at least $15 of FAB eligible items, it might not be a good fit for that customer to use that coupon at that time unless they want to go back and buy more. And the reason is they just don't get the benefit. So say, for instance, they have $25 worth of product, right? But only like 8 of it is Snap eligible, or I'm sorry, FAB eligible. They get the full benefit out of just using the fresh access bucks. The flyer's not getting them anything additional. So I would either encourage them to go and get more that is, like, say if you have like, you know, some collard greens that are really fresh and yummy that time, or some fruit or anything like that that's FAB eligible, encourage that. Or say, you know what, you're not getting any extra from this coupon right now, use it the next time you come in, you know, and really push it that way, because we want to make sure people are getting the best bang for their buck when they're using those coupons. Does that make sense? I know that one can be a little confusing. I just want to make sure that seems kind of clear. Yeah. Raise your hand if it doesn't. I'm not really sure how to. Okay, cool. I can access chat. Good. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in and put in a zip code and submit. So we have a couple transactions to play with, right? So this was our first part. That day was a slower day. I had 3 Snap transactions. I put all of them in. The next step on this, and a lot of this for you, is literally skills redundant, right? Because if you're giving a discount, basically what you have distributed is immediately redeemed, but we do need to know it. So we'll talk about vendors, the favorites lists briefly when we go into your profile. But what you would do once you're in here, if you're a single vendor, like say for instance, Margie has a CSA, so her only vendor for this intents and purposes is going to be Heaven Farm, right? Or for you, Michaela, it's going to be the farm, right? So Floribama is the only vendor. Very good. You'd be in the same situation unless you like to calculate other folks within this. But for our intents and purposes, you can either do it by your vendor, or if you're kind of as a farm stand or a CSA, the only vendor, you would just be putting that total reimbursed right in here. For this particular market, we've got a couple of...
Quick question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So as we add pop-up markets that we'll be doing, would that still just go under the farm, or would you want us to add other outlets based on where we're doing the market?
That's up to you. There's a couple ways you can do that. For us, it doesn't matter because you're still the person that's redeeming that fresh access bucks. And so we just want to make sure we're paying the correct person. If you guys want to keep closer track of those locations of where that money's going out, you can certainly create like the farm Tuesday or the farm pop-up Wednesday and use that in as your vendor. And so then you know where people are redeeming that stuff. That's fine with us. But if that's not how you do your record keeping, as long as...
So what if we have... What if we have individual other farmers joining us at those markets? Do I then need to list them as separate vendors?
You can. It depends on how you do your accounting. If you want to, yes. And it does help. And then we know how many farmers we're impacting. Okay. So that's always a good thing. We get that information from another space, so it's not vital for us. Okay. I think make the system that works for you. At farmers markets, this makes a lot more sense, right? Because you've got all these unique vendors that are like their little individual booth. But for you, you're kind of already aggregating a lot of times. If you at a pop-up market have like another farmer set up like a stall or anything like that, That's absolutely fine. You can set it up different like that if you'd like to.
Mhm.
And that's for you to create.
Okay.
Yeah. So for
Okay.
this,
Thanks.
yeah, of course. And for this one, in the payments redeemed, you know, I had that day I did $60 in Snap. I don't necessarily know the number of transactions if I'm at a farmer's market. If you are a farm stand and you say, oh, okay, I had 3 transactions that day, you can enter it. That's not mandatory.
Okay.
If you don't
Yeah.
know it.
Stop.
If it's all the transactions you've completed and you know all of them, put in the information if you know it. The other thing we don't necessarily know or need is gross sales. Never feel like you need to put that one in. Most people do not know them. The next few are the incentives redeemed. So I did have another $55 in fresh access bucks, and I had $5 in my FAB flyer. So I look down here, I check my records and I make sure this is correct, that my one vendor here got $60 in Snap with 3 transactions. There was $55 in fresh access bucks redeemed, $5 in that FAB flyer. They totally got $120, and I'd go ahead and click submit. And again, right below, they always do the last couple of logs. If you ever are logging a lot in one day, you can view the full logs, because I think this one will only give you like the last 3 to 6 that you put in. So you would do that for each vendor that you have. Again, if it's only you, like, you know, for instance, with the Berry Good or the farm, or with Margie with CSA, or even Dania Beach, you guys would just put in yourselves and how much total for Snap was redeemed, number of transactions if you do know it, and then the fresh access bucks and any other additional incentives you might have. Make sure that number looks right, click submit. This is where we get our information for giving you guys your direct deposit for FAB reimbursements. Cool. The last step on your market day or for your market day reporting is the post-market report. This one is the quickest and easiest piece. We have sheared off pretty much everything. So all we need to know is the total number of vendors selling at your market that day. So if it was just you can just put 1. If you had multiple, like for instance, if Michaela, in that example, if there's multiple at your pop-ups, or for you, Margie, doing different pop-ups now, if there's multiple vendors, you can put in more. Even if you're not really doing much for them, they were just there. It's good for us to know that's a part of it. Number of vendors eligible to accept Snap today. If it was just you, that's fine, 1. If you were allowing the extra pop-up folks that came with you to sell things through Snap, through your Snap equipment, you can add them, and that's fine too. So that would then be 2 if it's more than 1. So you got 2. Number of vendors selling fruits and veggies today. Say that was just you with your veggies and the other vendor was doing cakes or breads, fine. However many paid staff members here, if it's 0, it's 0. We know that's oftentimes a 0. If there were any volunteers helping you, that includes you. If you're a volunteer, you're not paying yourself. And did you have any of the following activities today? So this is where we check for nutrition education. So if there's a taste test, a chef or cooking demonstration, health fair, SNAP Ed programs, so if you work with your SNAP Ed, FNEP or any other nutrition education activities, other nutrition education, non-federal, that would be like if you're doing something in your newsletter or other things with recipes that aren't listed here, that's kind of your catch-all, is this other nutrition education. Or if none of these things happen, gardening demonstrations also count as nutrition education, because knowing how to grow a garden equals you probably are learning a little bit about the seasons and how to eat healthy if you're gardening some. So that does count. If it's none, you can select none. If it's something, you can select something. And then you go ahead and click submit and it'll let you know. Yay, we've done it. So those are your 3 main tabs that you will need on a regular basis. Transactions first, right? All that money coming in. Vendor reimbursement, confirming what has been sold, especially your fresh access bucks, so that we know what to reimburse you for that week. And then your post-market report. And this all plays into information we have to give to the USDA, and also proving the point of how important these kind of programs are for the income of how many farmers, right? How many SNAP vendors, and making them a part of this big puzzle and making sure food gets to people that could really need it. I do want to quickly touch on manage profile before we run out of time. So I'm just going to bump in here to manage profile. So you all have this. You probably won't need to access this on a regular basis, but I just wanted to point out what it is, and it's here. So contact information, this is you with the market and the market manager and a mailing address. Location information is where the actual market exists. Days of operation. So like I was saying before, I needed to make sure that I was going into a Saturday day for recording information because this market's day of operation is Saturday. If you're ever confused or not sure what day of the week your market is, this is where it lives. It'll be underneath your location under days of operation. Additional customer tracking. Michaela, this might actually work for you if you ever wanted to. If you guys wanted to record on the transaction page, like an other, what this would be is it would be a little field similar to the customer ID where you put in the FM tracks, where you could write a location for your post, for your pop-up markets, or like a day of the week, if that was helpful to you. So this is just optional, but if there was anything you were specifically trying to track. Payment and incentives, minimum SNAP. This is all of our information on the different incentives. And then down here at the bottom is your favorites list. These are the markets that are going to show up in your Dropbox when you're putting in your reimbursements. You can add them right in here and they will show up right in your Dropbox. I know we're about to be forced into the main room, but if you ever have any questions about this, I'm here for you. And I would be happy to chatter with you guys all about it. Yeah, so I'm getting a 30-second warning on all of this. But hopefully this has been kind of helpful. I know it's a refresher for you all. But what we get is when we do these now is we can see that markets are able to get receipts, if you'd like, based on you putting in reimbursements. So if there were other farmers that you're working with and ever wanted to generate a receipt or a report on what they've received, you can do that now in the report section, which is up here. It's your last little main tab, run reports. If you go to exports, one of your options is to generate a receipt. And so it would allow you to select a date range and a vendor for doing that. And so that's a really fun trick in there.
All right. Well, it looks like we're all back. I apologize if the ending of that was abrupt. We did want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're going to take a break until about noon. Feel free to just stay logged in. You can mute yourselves or turn off your video, whatever feels comfortable. And if something was interrupted, if you were in the middle of a question or you had a question that you didn't get to answer, feel free to go ahead and put it into the chat or just jot it down and make sure it gets to a FAB team member, and we'll make sure and get those answered. Mary, anything you want to say before we take a little break?
Yeah, I know that would kind of cut short and there's so much to FM tracks. I'm happy to stay on right now in the break if anybody has any lingering questions about FM tracks or just kind of any of those program mechanics we talked about before we get started. So I'll be right here parking out for you if you need me. I might pee like 5 minutes before we start the next session, but I'm here right now.
Great. And I do have it set up now so that folks, you can unmute yourselves. So if you do want to stay on and ask questions with Mary, it can be a little more informal during the break. I'm going to go get a quick snack and turn off my screen, and I'll see y'all back here at noon.
Hey, Mary, are you still there? I had a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, John.
Hey, so I was kind of curious and maybe even thought I was getting ready to leave Katie and go into the tokenless room. Mm-hmm. Is that, if we're on tokens now, is it an option for us to go to tokenless?
Yeah, and so a lot of folks that were using tokens are just trying to figure out a way not to have that extra piece of contact and maybe germs traveling or just logistics, so you don't have to like sanitize them each time. So yes, certainly. And so the reason we were kind of giving that as an option rather than just doing straight to like a 50% discount model is you'll probably eventually want to go back to it. You're already familiar, your customers are already familiar at your outlet with it. So yes, absolutely. And it would be fine to set it up. And basically how it would work is almost like giving a discount, but you use FM Track slightly differently. We also are trying to play around with how you can still give the maximum benefit. So say for instance, on a regular market day, someone swipes for $10 in Snap, you would immediately give them $10 in fresh access bucks to use right then or later on. But at the market that day, maybe they only are buying $5 or $6 worth of fresh access bucks eligible items. So if you're kind of doing it as a discount, they're only getting $6 in FAB rather than that full 10, right? So we're trying to figure out ways you can hold on to that extra 4 so they're still getting that dollar for dollar match. Lee, I believe we had spoken a little bit about how we would still implement that with you guys going kind of to this tokenless match situation.
Yes, we did. In fact, our whole idea, and we just had a meeting with the City of Venice yesterday and another one at the end of this week. It's appearing that we may open at the beginning of June. We're excited about.
Cool.
We are going to use an online drive-through market model, and the online system is Axiom. And what it will do is allow for each vendor to have a tile on our website, which is their store, that anyone can go into and use, but including our SNAP participants. If they are SNAP eligible, they will be designated as SNAP eligible, and they will be able to select SNAP as payment at the market and be able to process their order. If they're what we would call a green vendor, one that is FAB qualified, then that SNAP FAB qualified vendor would be identified as such. We want the SNAP participants to know that they will be able to use their green tokens with that vendor. So what will happen is they will make their order. What we're looking at is whether we can actually put in an automatic discount into the green vendor. There's a slight issue without knowing exactly what they're going to select from SNAP FAB vendor. So there's going to have to be a certain amount of trust and possibly a small margin of error that may come with that. But at the same time, to be able to make it tokenless and be able to benefit the SNAP participant, what would happen is that they would make their orders, they would check out with pay at market. What would happen is that the orders that the SNAP participants would make would go directly to the vendors, and the vendors will then email us the actual orders that they have received via email. So instead of all the labor associated with handing out tokens and collecting tokens and managing all that, instead we will manage the emails, because the vendor has a big incentive knowing that's how they're going to be reimbursed. So they need to send us copies of their emails, which are their orders that have been made. When we collect those orders, we basically will aggregate them. If we want to identify the SNAP participant by instructing them to use at the stores, at the SNAP and SNAP FAB stores, to please use what we refer to as their ID, their first and last initial, and the last 4 digits of their SNAP. We'll also have their name, and we'll have their email associated with the emails that come from the vendors. So for example, if Amy and I get 5 emails from 5 different vendors from the same SNAP participant, we would aggregate that order. And was that what we would charge their EBT card is only for this. We would charge their EBT card for the SNAP orders. That would be one subtotal. When we got to a FAB, when we got to a SNAP FAB, what we would do is that we would only charge 50% of that order to EBT, and then we would issue 50% as tokens for their purchases with a SNAP FAB vendor. What would happen is when they come to the market, before they would enter the drive-through portion, our tent will be set up immediately at the entrance. We'll be monitoring people that actually come into the market to make sure that they pre-ordered and So what will happen is that we'll have them simply pull to the side. We would have aggregated their order. We know how much they will be charged on the EBT card, and we will do a quick, safe EBT wireless transaction just at their vehicle. Obviously sanitizing, face masks, gloves. But the idea being is that when they drive through, all the vendors will know to simply fulfill their order, that we are going to reimburse them. And we're taking a look at the automatic deposit program versus the issuing checks. But we'll be sitting there entering into, after we make those transactions, entering into FM tracks, basically how much we just swipe the card for, how much in FAB tokens they will be using with their FAB vendors. Now, to bring up one of the questions is that we talked about was that, well, they're not going to get their entire green token allocation if you're only giving them the matching number for their orders that day. So Heather gave us an example that basically what would happen is that if you issued $100 in EBT, and it looks like they're only going to spend $40 in FAB, just enter in 100 EBT and 40 for FAB. Happens to the other 60, we would actually literally give to the customer at the time of the transaction, because we were already done all the math on this 2 days before they come to market, is that we will give them basically a card, so to speak, that just has the amount of green tokens that they still have available to them. What could actually happen is that they would be out of EBT, but still have $60 in tokens. They could go in and make a legitimate order with a Snap FAB vendor. And then let's say that was $40. Well, they would come in, we would know that's $40 and they have a $60 credit. So we would then accept the $40 for the transactions they're making and give them the $20. So basically you're just bringing down whatever their amount is that they hadn't used, that they could still use. They could still come back to the market, just like if they had token and shop with a FAB vendor. I think one of the other things that came out in our breakout is that what if someone has tokens already and they bring them to market? That's fine. We'll know what their order is. We'll see how many tokens there are. We'll accept the tokens that they want to give back to us that cover their order to reimburse the vendors. If they have less tokens that they want to give to us, then for the orders they gave for the vendor that day, then they'll need to swipe their card for the balance just to make sure that we have enough funds in the bank and being reimbursed by FAB to cover the vendor reimbursement. And so we're going to probably go through a period of some lessons learned and best practices, but the idea is that we want to avoid the tokens, and we've got a platform that we can use that will help us.
That's great.
Time explaining that.
No, thank you, Lee. That was what I was hoping to hear. That seems like a cool solution, and I think we'll continue to toy around with that because, again, I mean, the whole intention is that we get the max incentive out. Christine, you had your hand up for a little while. I just want to hear from you. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. So Katie said if like we had recipe cards online or sent out in the newsletter, that we should put that under chef and cooking demonstration.
Yeah, whatever you think is most relevant, that's fine.
Okay.
There's also that one that has like nutrition ed that's like non-federal.
Yeah, so I was also wondering, I was also wondering as well as that, should we click SNAP Ed or other nutrition education or EFNEP nutrition education with that? Like how?
You know, it's not completely clear. I think as long as you select one and you kind of are like, this seems like it aligns, that's fine with us. And then we can kind of, you know, we'll just confirm at the end, but it's a good way for us to be like, oh, on that date, there was something going on that happened as like a quick glance. But you selecting the correct one, there's a few that are kind of up there that would be kind of relevant for something that's not listed, like the recipe cards or like a newsletter recipe or a little video or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Christine.
Can you unmute me?
I'm gonna take a little bio break real quick. I'll be right back, everybody.
answer. Whether they're rich or poor, oh yeah, now we don't care what you do, how you look, or your status claim, baby.
No, no, because brothers and sisters from now on is gonna be everyone's name. Oh, the world is just a great big onion,
And hate and fear are the spices that make you cry.
you see it is.
And the only way to get rid of this great big onion,
Is to plant love seeds.
now everybody got to plant love seeds
Come on and plant love seeds.
until it dies. The world is just a great big onion.
We've just been performing a guerrilla gig in the middle of another group's guerrilla gig. Well, surely that's the ultimate guerrilla gig, but still they cried like girls. Road signs on our country lanes may not be what they seem. Asparagus next left, who says I've been upstream. Going down there for plum tomatoes, that's not a good idea. For horsemen, you're 200 yards, read bottomless perdition. When the club versus country dispute arose, small children were trampled in the exodus. We all knew someone at primary school who had a very powerful magnet. It's a way for new potatoes and arrow points innocently. Dirt track to a darker place, that's what it says to me. Last chance for hanging baskets, they're even giving you clues. Fresh broad beans and aubergines, euphemisms are for euphemisms. Whatever happened to the plumber's van, the humble amateur transit van? Vans have become ridiculous with their strategies and logistics. Fear left for marmalade, I don't think so, Joe. And why are tractors turning? We really ought to know. So stay away from the minor roads. Remember Phyllis Triggs? Ooh, rhubarb, let's go! She's still not being accounted for.
I'm gonna be around my vegetables. I'm gonna chow down my vegetables. I love you most of all, my favorite vegetable. If you brought a big brown bag of them home, I'd jump up and down and hope you'd toss me a carrot. I'm gonna keep well my vegetables, cart off and sell my vegetables. I love you most of all, my favorite vegetable. All day by vigil. I tried to kick the ball, but my tenny flew right off. I'm red as a bee, 'cause I'm so embarrassed. Oh, yeah. Jump, 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 do-do-do-do-do-do, pop, 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 do-do-do-do-do-do. I know that you feel better when you send us in your letter and tell us the name of your favorite vegetable. I know that you feel better when you send us in your letter and tell us the name of your favorite vegetable. It was just after dark when the truck started down the hill that leads into Scranton, Pennsylvania, carrying 30,000 pounds of bananas. Carrying 30,000 pounds, hit it big jump of bananas. He was a young driver, just out on his second job, and he was carrying the next day's pasty fruits for everyone in that cold scarred city where children play without despair in backyard slag piles, and folks manage to eat each day about 30,000 pounds of banana. Yes, just about 30,000 pounds. Dream it again, John, of bananas. He passed a sign that he should have seen, saying shift the low gear, a $50 fine, my friend. He was thinking perhaps about the warm-breathed woman who was waiting at the journey's end. He started down the 2-mile drop, the curving road that wound from the top of the hill. He was pushing on through the shortening miles that ran down to the depot. Just a few more miles to go, then he'd go home and have her ease his long cramped day away, and the smell of 30,000 pounds of bananas. Yes, the smell of 30,000 pounds of bananas. He was picking up speed as the city spread its twinkling lights below him, but it paid no heed as the shivering thought of the night's delights went through him. His foot nursed the brakes to slow him down, but the pedal floored easy without a sound. He said, Christ, it was funny how he had named the only man who could save him now. He was trapped inside a dead-end hillside, riding on his fear hunchback was everywhere one of those yellow green. I'm telling you, 30.
Welcome back, everybody, to session 2 of our first day of training. If you're just joining us, we are very glad to have you, and if you were here for the first session, we're glad to have you back. We are about to embark on a learning lunch, which is an alternative universe, alternate platforms presentation where we're all going to dive into some talks about sort of where we see the resiliency, where we're really seeing ourselves going, and how we're going to continue building our markets during and after COVID. So, but before we do that, I would like to reintroduce for folks who are rejoining us, our facilitator extraordinaire, Rachel Reichenbach, who's going to start us off with some of our quarantine cuisine, fun breakout, or a fun little session to get us started, and then we'll jump into some workshops on living our best alternative platform lives. So take it away, Rachel.
Cool, thanks, Katie. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome for folks who are just joining us. I will do another brief Zoom tutorial in case we have some new folks on the line. We should be set up so that you're not able to unmute yourselves. So if you do want to say something, you can raise your hand. The way you would do that is at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the word participants. It's like a button with a couple little stick people. If you click on that, you'll see an option to raise your hand, and that will flag myself or Mary, and we will go ahead and unmute you so you can speak into the space. Let's see what else. Some of you have found the chat, which is great. This is a great way to stay in touch and ask questions and just be in communication with each other while we're maybe sharing some content or other things are going on during the session. Yeah, we would love to see your faces, but it's a bummer that we're not together. We wish we were in person, and this is what's available to us in this moment, in this time of COVID. So if you can, or if you're in a place where you're able to turn your video on, we'd love to see your faces. You'll see in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, there's a button that says stop or start video. And if you're joining from the app on your phone, you'll see 3 little dots in the lower corner of your screen, and that will show you where the chat button is and where the stop and start video is and where your mute button is as well. I think that's it. I think most people were here for the previous session. The one thing we are asking is that we just sort of hold patience with one another. Using technology, we will always have some sort of glitch, or there will always be some sort of snafu. So we're grateful for your patience, and we're gonna do our best to make sure that we all have a good experience. If you are experiencing some sort of technical difficulty, feel free to drop a note in the chat, and myself or someone on the FAB team will do our best to help take care of you. FAB team or anybody else who's like a Zoom pro, anything else that feels important to say about Zoom before we get going? Okay, cool. Well, for those of you who were with us, I know we just came back from a little break, but we're gonna do a little energizer, a little arriving back in the space, or for folks who are just joining us, welcome into the space. So if you're able, I invite you to stand up. And I'm gonna wait a few seconds until maybe I see some folks who are game who might be interested in standing up. Thank you for those who are moving. I appreciate you. All right, and so I'm gonna read you a little story. And you only have one task while I'm reading, which is to do the corresponding body gesture based on the words that I say. So when I say right, you're gonna put your hands together and you're gonna move your hands to the right. And for some of you, that might look like the left, given that the screen is backwards, but you're gonna move to the right. And when I say left, you're gonna have your hands together and you're gonna move your hands and your body to the left. And when I say the word farm or farmer, you're gonna do this, like big jazz hands up over your head. Let me see them. Let me see those jazz hands. Come on. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Good spirits. Good sports. All right, so here we go. And I can't wait to be watching all of you do this. This is exciting. This is a story about Mr. and Mrs. Wright. One Saturday, Mrs. Wright was unloading her veggies from the farmer's market. Mrs. Wright called from the kitchen, "Oh no, I left the carrots at the farmer's market. You will need to go right back to the market. I left them on Farmer Bill's table." "I can't believe you left the carrots," exclaimed Mr. Wright. "At least you know exactly where you left them." "Don't worry, dear," replied Mrs. Wright. "It will only take 20 minutes if you come right back." Go to Peninsula and Martin Luther King and turn left at the stop sign. Then go to Tamiami and turn right. And the market will be on your left, declared Mrs. Wright as her husband left the house. Mr. Wright made it to the market right as it was closing. Mr. Wright asked the farmer market manager where he could find Farmer Bill. The farmer's market manager pointed and said, "Go to the end of this row of tents and turn left. Farmer Bill will be 3 tents down on your right." Mr. Wright found Farmer Bill, collected the carrots from right where Mrs. Wright had left them, and walked right back to his car. He turned left, but he couldn't remember where he had left the car. Suddenly, he remembered that he had driven Mrs. Wright's car and that his car was in the driveway at home, right where he had left it. He finally found the right car and put the carrots right inside. Eventually, Mr. Wright found his way home. Mrs. Wright had been waiting. "I tried to call you," she exclaimed, "but you left your phone right on the kitchen counter. I remembered that I also need eggs. I need you to go right back to the farmer's market before it closes." Mr. Wright sighed and told Mrs. Wright that there were no eggs left at the market, and besides, it had already closed. "I'm going right outside to work in the garden and enjoy this beautiful weather," said Mr. Wright. "And besides, we can go to the farm stand tomorrow to get the eggs. Isn't that right, dear?" That's it. Yay. Thank you all. It was very fun to watch. Yesterday, Mary and Katie pointed out that it might not be totally balanced. So if you need to like stretch it out, even up your sides, whatever you need to do to get into your body, we welcome that and appreciate that. And now while everybody's feeling a little bit fun, Katie is going to take a group picture. We always take a group picture at the annual training, and this year is no different. It will just be a virtual group picture. So Katie, I believe you're unmuted, and I'll let you tell us whatever you want to tell us about taking the group picture.
All right, is everybody ready? I'm going to take a couple because I can't fit everybody on one page, which is on one screen, which is amazing. So everybody, in the count of 3, I'd love for you to shout out your favorite vegetable. Do you need a second to think about what that is? It's not Brussels sprouts, I will tell you that much. Maybe it is.
And actually, wait, Katie, real quick. Mary, maybe would you unmute us all since you're still the host? It'd be fun. Since we're having sort of a silly, messy moment, we can be silly and messy and hear everybody's vegetables that they're shouting out.
That'd be awesome.
Oh.
Yay, okay,
Hey.
here we are.
Hi. Hey there.
All right, everybody ready? Got your vegetable? Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
Squash.
And I need to do one more because I didn't get everybody on one screen. So one more time, pick your favorite fruit this time.
That's harder. Ooh.
Is it? Yeah, there's a lot to choose from.
Okay, go.
Okay,
Ready.
1, 2, 3.
Blueberries.
Blueberries.
No, blueberries.
Thanks, everybody. We got it. Awesome. All right. We are officially documented. Everybody was here. It happened.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we are gonna move into, actually, maybe Mary, if you go ahead and mute everybody. And Mary, I believe if you go to participants, there will be an option to mute all. Beautiful. This is a little bit of a technology transparency moment. I'm going to say something to Mary about what's about to happen, and then I'll be speaking to everyone. So Mary, I guess you'll stay host, and then you'll be able to push everyone into breakout rooms. Okay, so what we're about to do is we're going to go back into breakout rooms for those of us who were in the first session, and we're here for the breakout rooms. And what these breakout rooms are going to be about is how folks are adapting at your outlet to COVID. The conversation today will be a little bit more logistical, sort of how are you doing things, what are the issues that you're seeing, what are your challenges, how you've shifted things, and sort of doing some peer learning with one another. What we'll do is similar to the last one, is that we've pre-assigned you into breakout rooms based on the registration information that you put in for today's session. If you find yourself in a room and it doesn't feel like the conversation you want to be a part of, or you're interested in being a part of a different conversation, that's great. We encourage you to move as you see fit. You'll see an option to leave the breakout room. That will bring you back to the main room where I will be waiting. And then I'm happy to put you into a room that feels like a better fit. So we're gonna be having 3 different conversations. One is about online aggregating. One will be about drive-through markets or a drive-through model. And then we'll have 2 different groups who are talking more generally about sort of regrouping after COVID and what does that look like moving forward. We'll break that conversation into 2 groups so we can have smaller groups so we can have a more in-depth conversation. Within these small groups, you should each have a FAB team member who will be there to help facilitate and sort of moderate the conversation. We're going to encourage folks to live into a few agreements or sort of guidelines for how we want to hold these conversations so we can get the most out of them. We're not going to have time to do a big go around of introductions in each breakout room. So when you do speak, it would be great if you could just introduce yourself, your outlet, your name, and where you're joining from. We want to be conscious that everyone has something to share, and so that brevity is really powerful. So when we're each brief, that gives others the opportunity to speak. We want to encourage folks to do no fixing, saving, advising, or correcting of one another. This is one of the hardest guidelines for those of us who like to help, and I know that we're all really eager to learn from each other and help each other out. So if we hear somebody expressing something that's challenging or that we think we have a good idea around, we might just offer them some empathy and say, oh, I really hear you. Something I've tried is this. So not trying to tell other people what to do, just sharing our own experiences. Yeah, we want to encourage people to really believe that it's possible to leave each conversation with exactly what you needed to get out of it. So just trust that you're retaining what you need. No need to furiously scribble down notes. The network is here for follow-up conversations and questions. And last but not least, we want to try on curiosity and leave judgment and comparison at the door. There's no right or wrong way to navigate our pandemic experiences. We might think that somebody else is doing something better, or we might look at what other people are doing and wish we were doing that instead of what we're actually doing. So let's just welcome each other's curiosity and honor the fact that we're all having different challenges and navigating this in different ways. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop a Google Doc into the chat. And that might not mean anything to some of you, and some of you might be very familiar with Google Docs. If you're somebody who is familiar with Google Docs, I request that you open this Google Doc. This is the place where we're all going to be sharing and taking notes. I have it set up so that anybody can write in it. Just because you open the Google Doc in this moment doesn't mean that you are going to be the designated note taker in your session, but you might be. And so before the dialogue really gets going, somebody from the FAB team will ask somebody to volunteer to take notes. So again, if you are familiar with Google Docs, please, please, please open the Google Doc. That way we can make sure we have notes taken in each of our breakout rooms. Just checking my notes to make sure that's everything. And I believe that it is. All right, so Mary, why don't you go ahead and push us out into breakout rooms?
All right, guys, let's see if this works. All right, Rachel, I'm going to step out and if I'm going to give you host and then I'm going to join, I guess, right? And if you can push me to the third room or the first COVID room, regrouping.
Okay, there you go.
Hi guys. I'm gonna unmute everybody real quick. See if I can do that. Maybe not. I might not be able to do that from here. But this is a room we're going to be talking a little bit about regrouping after COVID. I just want to make sure if you're in the right room, awesome. I hope you are. If you need to leave because you'd rather talk about drive-through models or online aggregating, you can select leave breakout room, and then Rachel can put you in the correct room you're interested in. I think for the first, if everybody can make sure if they're able to access the chat box. So if everybody can access the chat box, that's where we'll start. Great. I do not have the ability to unmute you right now. I might have to send Rachel a note and make sure everybody can be unmuted. Can you unmute yourself? Oh, you can. Great. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is the current situation at your outlet. So I want you guys to just take 3 minutes to write 2 sentences about the current situation at your outlet. Be concrete and specific. So the kind of specs of your outlet, the number of vendors, the management structure, anything specific issues that have kind of come to the fore, especially because of COVID. I'm only going to ask for 2 sentences. So just make sure your point is kind of clear and concise. I want you to, again, take 3 minutes, write those in the chat, but don't hit send until I push time, okay? So just give yourself a little minute. I'm gonna take a little timer here. We'll take 3 minutes to think about your 2 sentences. Then once we do, we're gonna share them all in the chat and get a chance to read what everybody's kind of thinking and what's percolated in for them about kind of what's going on. So go ahead and take that time to write those 2 sentences about the current situation at your outlet. So those specs, right? The number of vendors, management structure, etc. And go ahead and put those in the chat box. Even though it says everyone, it's just the everyone that's in this room. Great. We'll just take 1 more minute and then I'll make sure, just wait just a second, we'll hit send on those. Okay, great. Go ahead as you're ready to go ahead and pop these in there and we can all read through what's going on. Great. So it looks like we've got some great information from the St. Augustine Amphitheater with Missy, Christine from the Sweetwater Organic Market has given us a response. Gail from the Brevard County Farmers Market, Miranda Martin from from Florida Organic Growers, and Carol Rowan with High Springs, as well as Jamie from Dania Beach Patch, Margie with Bee Heaven, wow, interesting. So what are the patterns that you guys are seeing in these responses across the different experiences? Are there anything you're seeing that kind of strikes you? And feel free to unmute yourself and we can start chatting at each other now. I just wanted to give everybody a chance to write so we could all see what was going on there.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Jamie.
Okay. Hi there. Oh, it looks like everybody has is moving very slowly towards reopening, and it's a different kind of open, a different landscape as far as the distancing, social distancing, and just being allowed to sell to the public seems to be a big theme for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Anybody else see something that kind of pops out to them of what they've tried and what they're seeing in another outlet here?
Social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seems like a lot more logistics on your side with the pre-ordering. Is everybody kind of feeling that burden on them of how they wrangle all these kittens? I just saw both Margie and Missy kind of their last comment doing this limited access to kind of reduce the traffic control. And that seems like something, while maybe you had to worry about parking and those logistics before, but this seems like an added layer. Margie or Missy, do you want to comment on that at all, on what that looks like for you guys?
Yeah, it's a totally new reservation system that we're going to be using. That is we're going to roll it out a week before we actually open the market. We may or may not be opening May 23rd, so it's kind of all up in the air a little bit yet. But it's let me see. It's an online reservation system, so we only allow 10 reservations like every 10 minutes, and then people are going to have to come in the front at the amphitheater parking lot and check in with a security officer to be able to be let into the lot. But then they're going to get out of their cars and do their regular shopping, but it's going to be a one-way shopping row with a flow of traffic. So we're not going to you're not allowed to walk up and down the market row freely anymore. It's just going to be like a one-way in, one-way out. And yeah, we're just kind of gonna have to see how it goes. Our vendors are interested in participating though, so that's a good thing. And it just is going to be whether or not our vendors can be sustained with we're allowing 2 shoppers per car. So 420 cars equals 840 shoppers for the day, when they used to be, up to 5,000 in a day. So we'll just have to see you know, how it works out for everybody.
And so the online reservation system for you guys is just for the time to come and shop. It's not necessarily pre-ordering from the vendors. Is that correct?
Correct. We're not doing any pre-ordering. So that's why I don't think that the tokenless system would work well for our outlet still. I'm really interested in it though, because of now dealing with the tokens again here soon. But yeah, it's just for the reservations. And let me just find the name of that really quick for y'all. I'll put it in the chat box when I find the reservation system. And it was really inexpensive to come up with this reservation system.
Oh, cool. That's great. I've heard of people using Eventbrite for that before, but it's just really like, it's laborious for you to set up, you know, for people to set up, because it's only certain ones per like time increment, and it can be a pain. So that's cool that there's a system. Gail, I'm curious, since Missy just touched on it, you guys went from doing all pre-orders required, right, to now not requiring it. How's that kind of starting to feel and look?
I mean, it's getting back to somewhat more normal, but we also moved, we're still in the same park. We're just in their big pavilion so that we have more airflow and our vendors can spread out more. And because of that, and because more people are out at the park now, walking, biking, things like that, we're getting people who are just at the park to do that, who see the signs. So the first week we didn't not allow them to come in, but because our vendors, you know, we told them, you know, if you bring a couple extra items, that's fine, because maybe somebody forgot that they needed to pick something else up. So we've slowly moved to, it's nice to have pre-orders, but if you still come shop. The biggest part for us, because we're using parking spot, we're parking people in different spots and giving them a number and then going out to their cars and saying, okay, you can come in, but not everybody follows directions very well, which is very frustrating for people who've been waiting and see somebody just get out of their car and go. That's probably the biggest frustration we have, is just follow directions. So, yeah. But it's working. The vendors are happy, and I think the unlimited match is drawing more people, more SNAP folks, and just people seeing us. I mean, we have a whole lot. We've seen a lot of new customers just moving. We'd love to stay where we are, but we know we can't do that because the pavilion is generally rented out. But for right now, it's working nicely.
And are you just still taking regular tokens?
Yes.
Okay.
How is the shift to, I also see a lot of like kind of this like pre-order or just online order with the like the farmers in general or your vendors. Do you think that's something that's going to continue on? Like, how do you foresee that? And how is that like either adding or helping to what you're doing?
I mean, I find it, to me, for some of them, it's very helpful because, you know, they know they have orders, and especially moving into the summer when we typically slow down. So knowing they have orders gives them kind of more of an incentive to come than if they don't and just hope that people will come and get their products. So I think it may continue, maybe not with everybody, but for some of them.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great way to get to know your farmers.
Yeah. Margie, have you seen any changes with your CSA? I know you've started doing pop-up markets as well, but I'm curious with just kind of this resurgence. I know it's to the end of your season anyways, but I just didn't know if you'd seen a change in your online ordering. Uh-oh, I can't hear you. No. We can't hear you. I don't know what's going on. Oh, shoot. Um, cool. Well, the other question I kind of wanted to do, and similar to how we did it the last time, is I just want you guys to take a few minutes to just think about it, and then we'll do a wait and then submit kind of at the end so everybody can see. So right now, since we're so deep in this time of sort of like not sure how things are going to shake out, I'm really curious how everybody's making plans or preparing to move forward, and basically conceiving of sort of this like rollout of like the safety steps for living with COVID, post-COVID. So I'd love for you guys to take, again, just a few minutes to write 2 sentences about how you're navigating the decision-making for your outlet. So again, just try to be kind of concrete and specific about that with just 2 sentences. So again, what is helping you guide or make decisions for your outlet while we're still kind of in this uncertain period of how things are going to continue to look? And I'll just let you kind of think on that for a minute, and just I'll let you know when it's ready to hit submit, and we'll kind of have a little talk about that too. Okay, go ahead as you're ready, and go ahead and send those messages all away so we can all check out what everybody's up to. So go ahead and take some time and go ahead and read everybody's. Great. We've got some good thoughts here from Miranda, Carol, Gail, Missy. We just got in from Margie as well. It's interesting to see the different ways that the county or the different city ordinances have made a play on what's able to do for like an organization and what they're able to do. Are there anything that's come out of these kind of little prompts or discussions that you have questions on or want to share more about? I'm interested to see how the either local or county municipalities have had something to do with some of the ways you guys have had to make decisions.
I think one thing that's kind of interesting is the different levels that are kind of, over my head personally in terms of, what we can do or what we can't do. Sometimes city and county guidelines have conflicted. There are decision makers at the particular markets and people within, the organization that I volunteer with. So I think that's, maybe something that it seems like a lot of us are dealing with is, having to follow not only one set of guidelines, but multiple sets.
Mm-hmm. Carol, for you, you're not under the county necessarily, but you're working on your city.
But they're also working with Parks and Recreation, the city, the county, everything. They're going back and forth. They're trying to do what Alachua does, whatever Alachua's doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to see a question here from Missy about sanitizing tokens. Those of you that are using tokens, how are you going about actually sanitizing them?
We've been using bleach.
Mm-hmm.
We just have a big bucket and are just putting bleach in there and then rinsing them. And then after that, I put on gloves. At the last market, I put on some gloves and like pre-portioned with saran wrap and then put all of those into like a Ziploc bag, which kind of helped too because it was sort of pre-doubled. But like, I had 5s, 10s, and 20s. That had the orange and the green already, so I could just kind of, put everything into Ziploc bags for people and hand it over.
Oh, cool. That's smart.
It seemed to work pretty well until we ran out of tokens, in which case, I was wiping down the physical tokens at the market. So I think we're going to have to solve that problem by getting some more. But, it's, I think, within the realm of possibility.
That's smart. I like that. Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you.
And Gail, you put yours in quarantine, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and I was just typing that. I mean, any unused ones, obviously we don't have control over the ones that people take back home with them, but being plastic, they say 2 to 3 days. I don't know whether they just keep them in their purses, pocketbooks, where they might be keeping them, but that's the only ones we can't control, but the ones that we bring back, that's what we do with.
Smart. Margie, I liked your comment that you are like trying to hone down the amount of options you've got. So there's kind of like variety packs, and maybe that was going like 5s and 10s or something that's like an easy quantity amount too. And maybe that's something for some farmers also of like here's an easy price point to use with the tokens that we've got or something.
Even before COVID was around, I always had like 10 Ziploc baggies, and it had the 40 and SNAP 40 FAB match already in the bag. It explained, I write on each one with the marker, what's in there. So it's really easy that way there. If somebody comes up and they want a 40, boom, it's already done. I don't have to sit there and count it out and take time. It's done. I hand it to them in the baggie. So, but I normally do anyways on a normal basis after each market, go ahead and spray all the ones that come in with Lysol. Just keep everything clean. And then of course it's in the sealed containers for another week till the next market. So.
How long do you think you'll be taking these kind of precautions? Does anyone have like a sense of maybe through the summer, maybe through this amount of time? Does anyone have like a timeline that they're kind of playing with at all?
I mean, we're just winging it here, so I don't know. Yeah, it's completely changed us, and we were on the top of our game right before it happened. So I mean, who knows what it's going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I kind of like to talk about is like, how are we going to get back to where we were before, or even increase from where we were before after this? Because we have a lot less vendors now at Sweetwater. We have a lot, and we reduced our hours. We're still dealing face to face with people because we don't really have that many people coming through. Not thousands, less than 100 right now. But, how to build it back up after this is all passed over, if it does pass over. The unlimited math seems to be helping for now quite a bit.
We're trying to see it as a good thing, just because we got to our location and more people know about us now, just because we're a little more visible than what we normally were. So we're hoping that once we go back, and we're talking, we're here, we're usually, it's just, we're a little more off the beaten path generally. So we're hoping that those people that are new are going to continue to come once we get back to what our normal will be. And then we've also gotten more vendors interested in participating. We're not accepting them right now. We're accepting applications with the understanding that once we're back to our normal kind of workings, then that would be when they could come in.
That's great. I will say one thing, tomorrow we've got one of the outreach coordinators for the Department of Children and Families, which is our state SNAP agency. It'll be talking, and we basically just want her to hear you guys and how it's kind of just difficult that there's not this immediate like, oh, you're receiving SNAP, and guess what? There's this great program that operates at markets throughout the state. And I think it'll be really valuable for her to hear the challenges. And that's one thing that we didn't really have before. Like a lot of these different agencies didn't necessarily really think much of like farmers markets or like the program at all about this extra place of like safe food access. But it's like, that's exactly what you are. And that's one of my biggest takeaways is like, oh, look, they kind of see us now, So that's
we've had a lot of new customers, and they're all been people that are just recently received food stamps, which they didn't have before because of losing their.
Oh, great. Uh-oh. And it looks like this breakout room is going to close in another like 40 seconds. It'll shoot us all back into the main room, but I really appreciate everybody's insights. We just want to make sure, we're working together and can provide whatever resources, but also just the information sharing, because this is all new terrain for everybody. So wherever we can help each other out and not reinvent the wheel, but learn from everyone else, I think the better. So I appreciate you all and all the pivoting and nimbleness and ballet dancing you've been doing.
I think one of our main concerns is continuing the match through August 31st, and summer not being a real big time for produce. We're just a little concerned about that. But.
Yeah, I understand that. That's a good thought too.
So what about the FMN checks? I mean, they should be extended.
All right. Well, it looks like everyone's back. I'm really sorry about the Google Doc. I have been not having my email open so I can stay present. And then I literally just opened my email and I saw 15 requests for access to edit it. So thank you all for being diligent, and I apologize for that snafu. If you requested edit access, I will grant that because we're going to do something similar tomorrow. So hopefully we should not have that same technical difficulty. Thanks for your patience. We just have about 5 minutes left together. And so what we'd love to do is encourage all of you, anybody who wants to, if you would just drop in the chat something that you just learned or that felt inspiring, or just something that you're taking away from the group discussions that you just had. And I'll give everybody just a few minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes to drop some thoughts in the chat. And then we'll see if some folks want to come off mute and share a little bit. All right, we're going to give just 1 more minute for folks to drop thoughts into the chat. I hope you're all able to see what each other is writing. It is really inspiring. I agree with you, Art. I would love if maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people would be interested in just reflecting a little bit about what came up in your breakout room. I can take you off mute. I'd love to have a couple more voices spoken into the space before we say goodbye for the day. So if you feel called to share a little bit about what just happened in your conversation, if you would raise your hand, either digitally or physically, I'll be happy to take you off mute so we can get some reflection. I see John. I see John physically waving his hand. Let me unmute you, John. All right,
Yeah,
you should
thanks.
be good to go. Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to pat everybody on the back. You know, I've been working in nonprofits for 30 plus years, and you guys are an incredible group that does incredible work, and you go the extra mile to take care of the mission of the organization and the people that you serve. And I just think that's awesome and wanted to say thanks.
If folks agree, can we get a little enthusiasm. I think this is ASL for applause.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just kudos to all of y'all. And thanks for saying that, John. I think we have time for one more share. We see some hand clapping, which is cool. Yeah, again, if you would virtually raise your hand or just give me a physical wave, I'd love to weave in one more voice before we say goodbye for the day. No pressure, but we'd love to hear. All right, cool. Thanks, Hannah. I'm trying to, yeah, you should be unmuted.
So I heard about a lot of practices that will still be able to be used after this time of COVID. And I thought that might be a positive way of looking at this as because we are forced to find creative solutions and use new technologies that we haven't before. It can better our market even after we have had to deal with this pandemic.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hannah. Another practice, if somebody says something that we really like resonate with, we can either do this, or something that I've heard or seen people do is you can put a +1 in the chat. So I'll model it here, just a literal +1. So if somebody says something in the chat or says something in the space that you really like, you can do a +1. Or we see at the bottom, you can do reactions. So you can applause or thumbs up. Beautiful. Well, that's it from us for today. I'm going to hand it over to Mary very briefly to just sort of send us out